The first time I heard her cry, I wasn't supposed to be there. The hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and late-night regret, the kind that sticks to your chest and refuses to leave. I had only come to drop off some documents for a friend, but as I passed the oncology wing, I heard a quiet, broken sound, not loud enough to call attention, but heavy enough to stop someone who still believed that small acts of kindness mattered. When I looked through the half-open door, I saw her sitting upright in the bed, her eyes open but unfocused, tears sliding down her cheeks as if she didn't even know they were falling. There was no one beside her. No flowers. No family. Just silence. If you believe that kindness can change someone's life, maybe even your own, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because people like you still care. I later learned her name was Mira. She had lost her vision after complications from a rare neurological condition. The doctors weren't certain if it was permanent, but the uncertainty itself had become its own prison. Her parents had passed away years earlier, and the only relative she had lived in another country, unable to travel. The hospital staff did what they could, but compassion has limits when it's divided among dozens of patients. She spent most of her days alone, listening to the faint sounds of machines and footsteps in the hallway, waiting for hours to pass without knowing whether tomorrow would ever look different. I don't know what made me step into that room. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was guilt, because I had spent most of my life chasing success while ignoring the quieter opportunities to be human. Or maybe it was simply the way her hands clutched the bedsheet, like she was holding on to the last thread connecting her to the world. I introduced myself, awkward and unsure, and asked if she wanted someone to read to her. She nodded almost immediately, as if the question itself had been a lifeline. That first day, I stayed for an hour. Then the next day, 2 hours. By the end of the week, I was there every evening, reading novels, poetry, news articles, anything that could paint pictures in her mind. Eventually, my schedule shifted around her. 6 hours a day became routine. Friends questioned why I was investing so much time in someone I barely knew. Some assumed I felt pity. But it wasn't pity. It was something quieter, deeper. A sense that her world had gone dark, and I had somehow been handed a small candle. Over the months, I learned the rhythm of her emotions. There were days she was hopeful, asking questions about colors, sunsets, and faces she might one day see again. Other days were heavy, filled with silence and resignation. She struggled with the loss of independence more than anything else. The inability to walk alone, to pour water without fear of spilling, to recognize her own reflection, these things eroded her confidence piece by piece. I watched her fight battles no one else could see, and it changed me. I became more patient, more attentive, more aware of the fragile courage people carry inside them. But somewhere along the way, something unexpected happened. I stopped coming because I felt obligated. I came because I wanted to. Hearing her laugh when I exaggerated characters' voices became the highlight of my day. Feeling her relax when I described scenes in detail made me realize that connection didn't require sight. And when she reached for my hand during moments of fear, trusting me completely, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years: purpose. Then came the first major setback. A specialist reviewed her case and suggested that the damage might be irreversible. I saw the hope drain from her posture like water from a cracked glass. That night, she didn't want me to read. She just wanted me to sit there. 6 hours passed in near silence, broken only by occasional breaths that sounded heavier than they should. I realized then that sometimes presence is more powerful than words. Despite the prognosis, we continued the routine. Rehabilitation therapy started. Experimental treatments were discussed. Progress was slow, almost invisible, but there were tiny signs, slight reactions to light, faint improvements in nerve response. The doctors remained cautious, refusing to promise anything. But hope, once planted, has a stubborn way of growing. One evening, nearly 9 months after we met, she asked me what I looked like. The question caught me off guard. I described myself honestly: average height, tired eyes from long days, a small scar on my eyebrow from childhood. She listened carefully, as if memorizing each detail. Then she smiled in a way that made my chest tighten, and I realized that somewhere between hospital visits and shared stories, I had fallen in love with someone who had never seen my face. Admitting that truth to myself was terrifying. I worried about the imbalance, that she depended on me, that her vulnerability might blur emotions. But love doesn't always arrive in perfect circumstances. Sometimes it grows quietly in hospital rooms, between pages of borrowed books and whispered encouragement. The day I finally told her how I felt, her reaction wasn't dramatic. It was gentle. She reached for my hand, just like she had during her hardest moments, and held it longer than usual. In that silence, I understood that she felt it too. Around the 1-year mark, something extraordinary happened. During a routine examination, she reacted strongly to a light stimulus. More tests followed. Then more therapy sessions. Gradually, shapes began to emerge from darkness. Shadows first. Then blurred outlines. The doctors called it partial restoration, but to us, it felt like a miracle unfolding in slow motion. However, recovery brought its own fears. She worried about what she would see when her vision returned more fully. Would reality match the world she had imagined? Would I look different from the person she had built in her mind? I reassured her constantly, but inside, I carried the same anxiety. Months later, when her improvement stabilized, I proposed. Not in a grand gesture, but in the quiet hospital garden where we had spent countless evenings. She said yes without hesitation, her voice trembling with happiness and disbelief. We planned a small wedding, unsure how much her vision would recover by then. The doctors said it was possible she might see more clearly, but nothing was guaranteed. The morning of the wedding arrived wrapped in nervous anticipation. I stood at the front, my heart pounding harder than it ever had. When the doors opened and she walked in, guided gently by her friend, I noticed something different immediately. Her gaze lifted toward me, not past me, not through me, but toward me. Step by step, she moved closer. And then, just a few feet away, she stopped. Her eyes widened slightly, filling with tears that caught the light. For the first time in her life since we had met, she was seeing me. In that moment, a year of memories collided: the hospital room, the long readings, the silent nights, the fears, the hope. I realized that love had carried us across a darkness neither of us fully understood at the beginning. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a second to like the video, share it with someone you love, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what humanity really means. Your support helps these stories reach people who need them most. Special request: before the story ends, comment the word hope if you believe that even the darkest situations can change. As she stood in front of me, seeing my face clearly for the first time, she smiled, not the uncertain smile of someone imagining, but the confident smile of someone who finally knew. I understood then that the hours I had spent reading weren't just about helping her survive a difficult year. They had built a bridge between two lives that might never have met otherwise. We often think grand gestures change destinies, but sometimes it's the quiet decision to sit beside someone for 6 hours a day that rewrites everything. Kindness rarely announces its impact in the moment. It unfolds slowly, like vision returning after darkness, until one day you realize it has transformed not only someone else's life, but your own. And as we walked out together, hand in hand, into a future neither of us could have predicted, I knew one truth with absolute certainty: the day I stopped in that hospital hallway wasn't an accident. It was the beginning of a miracle disguised as a simple act of kindness.